The Shadowfell and the Feywild are in direct opposition to each other in the D&D multiverse, so I talked to Mike Merles about what makes both of these planes of existence so different.
A lot of the things that I really enjoyed working on, and that how we built up the Fey in Volo's guide, when it came out last year, this idea that you take like a mean lock and then you take like a red cap and try to figure out how would these guys be linked in some way, and you don't want to just the link to just be like they know the same guy. It's more like no, like cosmically, how are these things connected? Like, what does it mean to be Fey? And we kind of had this idea come out that okay, the Feywild is the realm of extreme emotions, where emotions can become so strong that they become essentially personified. Like the mean lock represents paranoia and fear. It is paranoia and fear. You're right. The red cap is murderous rage. And that I loved where that was so much fun to work on, because then it just suddenly a lot of these creatures like you not only like it's not just they make sense in the way that you can kind of pat yourself on the back and go, hey, these pieces fit together, but it also suggests well what other things could exist. And as a dungeon master and as a writer, it starts to inspire you, and it tells you some really important fundamental truth about, in this case, the Feywild, that can really inform all the rest of your writing and thoughts about it in a way that I hope is, if we've done our job right, inspiring.
In Western mythology, the fairy realm is not a safe place.
No, exactly, right? Yeah. And so for us, what the Feywild represents is that idea of wild is important. It's not just, it's the land of the Fey, it's a wilderness and it's a dangerous realm of the Fey. And the Feywild stands in opposition to the Shadowfell. So you have the material plane, where the worlds of D&D, like Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, and so on, they're within the material plane. And you can think of the Shadowfell and the Feywild as opposing poles, where the Feywild is the realm of emotion. It is a realm guided by extremes. Imagine like this idea: if you take any system and you just pump lots of energy into it, you just get lots of extreme outcomes, right? I mean, you just think of it. If you have two cars going crashing together, the faster they go, the more dramatic the crash, right? That the Feywild is where everything is going 100 miles an hour and is constantly crashing into each other. There are no simmering resentments. There's just all straight up blood feuds, and then super deep unbreakable ties that can give way to utter deep hatreds. The Shadowfell in opposition is a realm of not death in the sense of like physical death, but more in the sense of the deadening of emotions and thought and feeling. It's a gloomy realm. Like everything is just very muffled. There are it's the opposite. It's where emotion is drained away. Everything is gray. Everything is dull. Everything looks the same. Even events, things happen over and over again. You think of Strahd, he plays out the same story over and over again. It just becomes rote. Where in the Feywild, nothing's predictable. Everything is constantly changing. In the Shadowfell, everything essentially enters into a rhythm and remains stuck in it. So you imagine as adventurers, you go into the Feywild and you're dealing with a constantly shifting, dangerous situation, whether it's someone you're talking to or a monster you're fighting. When you go into the Shadowfell, where in the Feywild you're trying to keep everything steady, like you want to keep everything on an even keel so you can survive. In the Shadowfell, you're the change agent. You're the ones who break the cycle of Strahd. You're the ones who come in and you're trying to recover that artifact that may be lost there, right? But like, how do you find it? How do you take this realm of stasis and introduce change to it? So it's a very different feel. It is the opposite of the Feywild, where the Feywild is a realm of constant change. How do you introduce stasis? How do you hold on to your identity and remain who you are, and not the Feylord who welcomes you in? How do you very carefully stay on her good side so she doesn't just suddenly order you executed? Just for a slight, an offense you don't even think it's something offensive you just did suddenly sets her off, and then suddenly she's your best friend again, and then it's maddening, right? It's a realm of madness, where the Shadowfell is a realm of essentially depression. It's where everything just goes to just stop. The challenge in the Shadowfell is how do you fight through that its dolorous nature, right? Like you might go to the Shadowfell and lose track of your quest. You might fall victim to it. You might start repeating the same thing. Like let's say you're traveling across the Shadowfell, you might just start traveling in circles and just endlessly. You lose all hope. You lose all emotion. What drove you here is probably something emotional, your goal. And instead you just accept stasis and just become part of the scenery, essentially. So that's like how those two realms are positioned.
It doesn't sound like it's pure chaos. It's just heightened.
It's heightened. Everything's unpredictable. You might go in thinking like, we need to, like, this guy has this item we want. We need to deal with him, and you might have this overwhelming hatred of him. Like, now you just want to kill him. That's the only thing you want to do. You lose sight of why are we talking to this person. I hate this guy. I hate him more than anything I've ever hated. I need to start striking him right now, or I'm going to lose my mind, right? Things like that. Both realms want you to lose yourself. One wants you to lose yourself by becoming an extreme version of yourself, the most hateful version of myself possible, or the most drunkard, or the most whatever. The Shadowfell wants to become the least version of yourself, right? I am a great ranger and I got lost in the Shadowfell, so I just wander around aimlessly for no reason.
So the Feywild does have a nefarious side to it?
Oh, 100%.
It wants you to become an evil?
It's not that like, neither realm has a will. Neither one is like, has a plan.
Right.
It's like high gravity versus low gravity. It's just the environment you're dealing with. Where the material plane is in the middle, right? Emotions as we understand them. We have our highs and lows, but there's a band. The Shadowfell says the band becomes this. The Feywild says the band becomes this, and there's no middle. There's just one extreme and the other. Both are equally dangerous.